And it's Dave Lawrence on 100.7 WZLX, Boston's Classic Rock, continuing my conversation with the Grateful Dead's Bob Weir, who's back and gracing us with a fabulous Rat Dog performance down at the Tweeter Center. Thanks again for taking more time to talk with us here on ZLX, Bobby.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Something that you and I did not get on the first time when we were getting together to talk earlier this afternoon, that was the camping and vending scene at the Grateful Dead concerts. And it's something that, as a person, I'm 30 years old, so in the 80s I was a teenager, and it was a really big deal to me. And I understand that it also was sort of the thing that kind of worked against the band in a lot of ways. And I was wondering if you could reach back into your mind and tell me when you first noticed the camping thing evolve as the Dead shows.
I think it was in the early 80s that it started to really become something. You know, it achieved substantial mass. And it was way cool back then because we got away with it for a number of years. There wasn't trouble out there, and you know, you could if you were for instance, and a teenager, you could sort of run away from home, and it was like running off with the circus or something. You know, you could disappear into that world and not
the
be
last great escape, sort of.
Right, and not be heard from for a couple of years. That you were untraceable, and it was its own little world with its own little intrigues and all that kind of stuff. But then it got a little too famous, and you know, a lot of people came there for the wrong reasons. The same kind of thing that sort of poisoned the Summer of Love back in the '60s. A lot of your ne'er-do-wells and roustabouts started horning in on the scene, and it got kind of ugly, and there were riots and stuff like that, and got out of hand, and we couldn't do it anymore.
It was the summer of '89 that the last camping and vending occurred officially, and that was a tour that I spent a lot of time on, and I seemed to notice a lot of people were bringing garbage bags. A lot of people were sort of aware that, hey, man, we better get a grip on our own thing out here, because the Dupree's Diamond News kept coming out with the little reminders from the band saying, look, guys, you got to get it together. We can't just have mayhem in each of these cities, towns, wherever we go. We sort of need to respect their laws. I felt in 1989 as if people were trying hard to respect the community, but yet still doing their own thing. Was it something that happened right after that tour where you guys had like a meeting? How did it actually happen that you said, you know what, this has to end? This unique, once-in-a-lifetime rock and roll experience has to finally end.
Yeah, it wasn't anything that we were particularly happy about, but it was made plain to us by the powers that be in the various places that we were going to go and try to play in, that if we were going to have camping, then we weren't welcome. Because nobody wanted that. You know, we were attracting your trash and boogie crowd, and it just wasn't working for any of the people who have to live in those locales. That said, you know, that's not to say that it could never happen again, because it probably will. And once burned, twice shy.
Right. Maybe
people will learn that you got to be responsible. And keep that guy who's on the edge reined in somehow, and be responsible for yourself as well. Everybody else's keeper.
We're all brothers.
Yeah. And if we work like that, then it will work. Here's hoping it does happen again.
No, absolutely. It means the world to me to get to even talk about this with you, because very few people outside of our world, and I say our world because I'm a big fan of the Dead, and I have been for many years, and it feels like it's my world. A lot of people don't even understand what that camping and vending thing was. And when I try to explain to them that you could like leave school on spring break, you know, this is like spring of '88, I'm reliving in my head here, and go away for a week, you know, and follow the Dead. You could pull into the parking lot. The greatest part, Bobby, is you pulled into the parking lot. There were two gigantic flashing signs, okay, at Meadowlands. I remember this in my mind. And the one sign said day parking and an arrow. The other sign said overnight parking. And it's like, this is a rock concert at the Meadowlands, and I'm camping there for a week. You know, it's a special thing. And so I just think that there's there's a value to documenting that experience, to talking about it, and to just, being able to kibitz with you to sort of get how it happened, how it evolved, because it's a very radical thing, man, and nobody else had it. Right? Am I right about that? Or did it happen and I missed it somehow?
I don't know if nobody else had it, but this much I do know is that it would make a great movie. There are all the elements for intrigue, romance, whatever. It'd make a great movie. And one of these days it probably will. Aside from that, it's inevitable that it's going to try to happen again. And here's hoping that it happens right, at least for a while. It's apt to get out of hand again. Because you're dealing with kids, and kids are effusive. They'll bubble up over the top.
You knew it could get out of hand before. How did you feel? I mean, earlier today when you and I were talking outside, we had a moment or two where we talked about like your knowledge or perceptions of the details of what was going on in the scene. I mean, how much knowledge did you have at that point of exactly what was going on out there? I mean, did you understand the volume of kids, the sheer number of kids who were living on the road in the parking lots of your shows?
I used to, every now and again, I'd don a disguise and go out there and
Did you really?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had great times out there.
Through the end, did you do it in '89? You went out in disguise in the crowd.
Oh yeah, later, but oftentimes toward the end, it was just to check out what was going wrong and see if anything could occur to me about how to set it straight. There was no setting it straight, but. For a while, I was able through the '80s, through most of the '80s, I was able to go out there in disguise once again, so no commotion was caused, and just be out there, and I had a great time.
Did you get any veggie burritos when you're out there?
You bet, all that kind of stuff.
I love it. And another thing on that subject, which we've talked about the camping now extensively, we never really talked about the vending, and there's something about the Grateful Dead spirit, the way you allowed a massive amount of commerce was essentially going on outside these shows. Not necessarily like you were allowing commerce, but what happened was hundreds of thousands of dollars in business was being done in the parking lots. And the way I interpreted the rule, so to speak, the quote-unquote rule from the Dead was, as long as it didn't have our logo on it, go ahead, sell what you got to sell in the parking lot to get by.
That was pretty much it. With regard to our copyrighted material, you have to police your copyrights or lose them. That's the law. So we couldn't allow that to go on. Besides, by not allowing people to use stuff that we had copyrighted that had already been done, it spurred them to be creative, and that was good.
Bobby, it's more than good. It's incredibly generous. I mean, you allowed a community to exist. I don't want to say on your coattails because that has a derogatory sound to it, but in your realm, you allowed them to develop a business, a commerce, a society that could support themselves, and you sort of, in the best of ways, let that happen. And I think you deserve a standing ovation for that. I mean, this is an era where they're charging outrageous, hand over fist, $30, $40, $60, $70, $80, $90, $100 for the tickets. I mean, it's out of control. Depends on who you're seeing. They're getting them out at the concession stands. Here was a band that during the 80s, which a lot of people think of as the most material decade, was allowing a community to exist and to make a living off of what you did. I mean, it's a very generous thing. It goes beyond rock and roll. I mean, are you aware that it was that significant of a thing?
Oh, sure, but it served us. It served the whole situation, the whole scene, if you will. It served us, and it served them. It was mutually beneficial, symbiotic relationship.
It's special, though, man.
Well, I had a great time.
We all did, and I think it's very important. Like I said, I've waited years to sort of get this from you, just to hear, and I'm sure you can understand what it was like for kids who were really into the band, who would find a very special, safe place at the Dead. I went to the Dead shows, and there was never any violence. It was like all rules of traditional society were off. It was like we're all brothers here. It was a very all-inclusive sort of world. And I don't see that at any other show. I've never seen that at any other show or in any other rock environment since.
Don't know what to add to that or subtract.
But you can see how I'd feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's happening, and I don't go to all that many shows, and when I do, I don't get a chance to hang in the parking lots that much. So.
Perhaps the reason that the Dead was able to become such a community phenomenon, because it really is a band that had a community around it, was this book that I'm really into. This one book that my brother laid on me a few years ago. It's not a book that you published. It's a book that all the fans sort of, it's a Bible, so to speak. And the book is DeadBase.
Oh, right.
And DeadBase is, and I just like the fact that I can get you to talk about it for a moment, because even though it's not an official book, I wanted to sort of have you describe what the DeadBase is.
Well, among other things, it's it's all the shows that we've done and all the tunes that we did, and commentaries.
I have DeadBase 10 that Bobby and I are looking at right now on the table. Bobby's like flipping through.
It's a thick book.
You could kill a large cockroach with this thing. No, it's when my brother first gave this thing to me. Flip to the front. The front is my favorite section. Here's my world right here, Bobby. This is my world. When my brother first gave this to me, I couldn't appreciate what this was going to do for my life and what it does. And again, it's not blowing it out of proportion. It's just that it's a very cool rock and roll book, because you can not only go down through the pages of this book and see every single Grateful Dead show that happened, but you can also track where it happened, who else was on the bill, if there was a particular opening band. Do you own a copy of this? Is this like sitting in your house?
I've got
How do you use it as reference?
Well, I used to use it all the time. The updates I used to use to find out what tunes we did last time we were in a given town, so we wouldn't repeat ourselves.
You would actually do that?
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, flip through it, please.
Oh no, that's okay. I'm not wearing my glasses. But this will be of considerable use to people in the not too distant future when we start making our vault available on the web. This will be a great reference, and we'll doubtless co-opt their
information,
yeah.
so that people can sort of get the catalog.
Yeah.
I use it for finding shows maybe that I want to find from people, and I've also, like I said, I think it's great for the general classic rock fan out there who may not even know much about the Dead, because the book is filled with other artists that you guys have played along with. Mm-hmm. It's also filled with stories about important people in your lives. And there's a lot of people, whether it's Neal Cassady or whether it's musicians that you've jammed with. And before I, go away from Bob Weir and may never get to talk to him again, when was the last time that Neal popped into your mind, Neal Cassady, and what was the memory that you had?
I don't remember. My guess is.
How often do you think of him?
Often enough. I was probably telling somebody the story about how he taught me to drive, which I won't go into here. It's a little too long.
Sure.
But, he was a huge figure in my life.
He was a massive guy, and I think a lot of people who are young still look at On the Road and find a huge bond in it. It doesn't matter what generation you're from. Right. It's a very powerful thing, and the connection between that book, one of the main characters in it, and the Grateful Dead is something that is valuable.
You bet. The definitive movie, once again, has yet to be made on the subject of Neal Cassady, but one of these days it will be.
No, that would be a fantastic movie to catch. I would love that. In the way you plan your future, I know that you're going to continue on tour doing the Rat Dog thing for a while. Do you have artists that you've never worked with who you aspire, maybe old blues guys, maybe jazz guys, maybe fellow rockers, people that you've never gotten the chance to work with, but you know that you maybe could? You could use the fact that you're Bob Weir, you could do it. You could, hey, I'd love to get Elvin Jones in, or, are there cats like that?
I haven't thought that much about it right now, because I'm trying to work this band together, and it's happening for me. I'd say in a year or two we'll start thinking about that, and I'll start thinking about that. But time being, I'm sort of I've railroaded myself into getting this little act together.
It took years to get Evening Moods together. I totally would understand why you'd want to get out there and just like bang on it,
Right. Well, we'll be doing a little of that.
No, it's fantastic. I love I love the updated Karina. I love, you know, it's sometimes when I hear it, it's just weird, you know, because it brings back memories of years and years before, chasing you around when that was a brand new song.
Right.
You have a big box set that's coming out this fall. 12 CD set.
Something like that.
It's an enormous collection.
I'm not entirely up on the presentation there, but it's got a lot of good stuff. I do know that.
You personally involved in putting it together?
Not really. No, I'm out here doing this, and we have our archivists, and Mickey Hart's involved a little bit, but we have our archivists doing that.
Okay. And finally, New Year's. There's something that was always a big tradition. A lot of bands have seemed to copy the New Year's formula for doing a great show and having, I guess, props, actors, costuming. I see that happening all the time. And I know you did a big one last year out, and it was sort of like a dueling New Year's right down the street from each other. Phil was down the street, and then you had, I believe, George Clinton opened up the show. Is that correct?
Right.
Because we're good friends with somebody in his management.
I think we'll do it again this year.
And doing like more. Was there a grand entrance at midnight?
Oh yeah, the whole deal.
What was it?
Well, there were, you know, trapeze artists and all that kind of stuff. There was a little parade. Okay. It was a good show.
It's cool. All right, well, Bobby, again, it's very cool. I'm glad that you took the time to talk to us here on ZLX. I've been chasing you around for a long, long time, man. And it's a thrill to get to talk to you. I wish you the very best of luck, and please keep us in mind, because if there's next time you're through Boston, if there's anything we can do for you, if you want to come to the studio, if you want to meet some of the listeners, anything and everything, ZLX will be there for you. We are Boston's Classic Rock.
All right. See you in a bit.